It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the three films of December 7th, 2007. Yes, we're finally at the end of the year, the last 4 weeks of the year, so hopefully we're going to get the big blockbusters, the big Oscar contenders, all coming up here, and they're all going to be somewhat entertaining. And we do get that this week, at least with the Oscar contenders. The blockbuster, not so much. Let's go ahead and take a look at that blockbuster, or the supposed blockbuster, if you will, because, yeah, this was supposed to be one of the next big Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Narnia franchise that was supposed to relaunch a new fantasy film franchise, and, needless to say, the Golden Compass was not that whatsoever. Like I said, it didn't really make that much money overall. And yeah, it was seen as a massive disappointment. And it was actually seen as one of the things that caused New Line Cinema to actually be shut down and absorbed into Warner Brothers. I mean, this is one of the movies that literally led them to do that. And, you know, for a studio that's gambled so much on the Lord of the Rings almost 10 years prior, to have a movie like this basically be the thing that causes them to contract as a studio, that tells you something. I mean, I don't know exactly what happened there, but let's talk about the movie itself, though, because it's a film that I did see back in the day, thinking that, because I missed out on Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and Narnia, and I thought, you know, all these fantasy franchises turned out to be pretty good, so maybe I'll be there for the next big franchise to come, and like I said, needless to say, that was not the case. But in the film, you have a girl named Lyra Belacqua who joins a race of water workers and seafarers on a trip to the far north in search of children kidnapped by the Gobblers, a group supported by the world's Rutlers, the Magisterium. And you got Nicole Kidman in here, Daniel Craig, Sam Elliott, Ian McKellen, Eva Green, Freddie Highmore. Everybody has these animals that they're companions with across, and they're voiced by a lot of different actors. Freddie Highmore's the one for Lyra, and I believe Kristen Scott Thomas is the one for Daniel Craig. And yeah, part of the I think you can kind of see part of the reason why this didn't work to begin with, and it's mostly because, yeah, unlike because, like, here's the thing: Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Narnia, they had complex stories, but they were at least simple to understand what was going on. You know, they were at least able to give you a legitimate story, building characters across these films. And yeah, they had movies where they could simplify a story while also being more complicated. So, but never to the point where you get confused right away. The Golden Compass is the complete opposite of that, because quite frankly, you really have no idea what the hell is going on here. And even if you read the books, you still would have no idea what the hell is going on in here, because so much happens in this movie. So much and it feels like New Line's copying themselves, really, because we've already had several movies that have tried to create the next big fantasy franchise and failed miserably. Of course, Fox had Aragon the year before, and just a couple months ago, they had The Secret of the Dark is Rising, which was also a massive failure. And yeah, this film definitely is up there with those movies that tried so hard to get something going, and it just failed miserably overall. And it was really being bad from the get-go, because yeah, you couldn't tell what the hell was going on in this movie. Everything was way too complicated. You didn't know who much about these characters overall. They just brought you right into the story. And it didn't work overall. And it didn't help that you had a director like Chris Weitz, who had proven time again that he could be a solid director, as he did, you know, American Pie, Down to Earth, About a Boy beforehand. But now you give him this bigger blockbuster to work with here. And needless to say, I think he was the wrong guy for this movie overall. I think you needed somebody on the levels of like a Peter Jackson or even a Guillermo del Toro to really show off what he is, you know, expand the world a little bit more. You know, get a guy that knows how to write the scripts overall, that can really work in this type of a blockbuster environment here. And the end result we got here was a film that had a lot of ambition to it, but just was asking the audience way too much overall. It's kind of like the precursor to David Lynch's Dune back in the 80s, you know, or even similar to David Lynch's Dune in the 80s, I should say, not a precursor, but, you know, a movie that was ambitious for the time, but just didn't have enough there to really cement itself as a film that was going to really become the next big thing overall. And yeah, the end results speak for themselves overall, even though the film did make its budget back eventually. It made over $370 million worldwide, and there were talks about a sequel because the film did very well overseas. But of course, when New Line Cinema basically had to be shut down and absorbing the Warner Brothers. That was kind of the nail in the coffin on that front there. But we did eventually get a TV reboot out of it with His Dark Materials, which overall was a pretty good show and actually did show off the potential of what this story could be about. Even if you, like I said, even if you never read the books before, you could still get an understanding in that show much better than you could in a film like this. I just feel like in this film there was just way too much going on. Nobody really had a direct idea of what the intention was for this supposed to be. And it just failed miserably on so many levels. And yeah, even when I came out of the movie, I was just like, I don't even know if I like this or not. Or like, I just don't feel anything like it did when I watched Harry Potter for the first time or Lord of the Rings. I just felt like this was a film that really was trying way too hard to copy what had worked before instead of just doing something new and exciting and different. And it backfired on New Line Cinema big time. They thought they could hit the bullseye once again. Only this time, the nightmare they thought Lord of the Rings was going to be happened with this movie. And of course, a couple months later, they would eventually have to be absorbed back into Warner Brothers. And this is where New Line Cinema is currently at right now. So anyway, that is the Golden Compass. So let's go ahead and move on to the good stuff that came out this weekend, starting with Joe Wright's follow-up to Pride and Prejudice, Keira Knightley and James McAvoy in Atonement. So the story of Atonement focuses on when Brianni Tallis, played by Saoirse Ronan, a 13-year-old and aspiring writer, sees her older sister Cecilia, played by Keira Knightley, and Robbie Turner, played by James McAvoy, at the fountain in front of the family estate. She misinterprets what is happening, thus setting in motion a series of misunderstandings and a childish pique that will have lasting repercussions for all of them. Robbie is the son of a family servant toward whom the family has always been kind. They paid for his time at Cambridge, and now he goes on to plans on going on to medical school. After the fountain incident, Brianni reads a letter intended for Cecilia and concludes that Robbie is a deviant. When her cousin Lola, played by a young Juno Temple, is raped, she tells the police that it was Robbie she saw committing the deed. And it just leads into a series of unfortunate circumstances overall. Excuse me. And it just makes for a film that is very engaging overall. A film that could have easily been so boring and so pretentious and all that type of stuff. And it really does not do that. In fact, if anything, this is a movie that I think does the Me Too element here much better than a movie like, say, the movies we got when Hollywood was in this let's make movies off of the Me Too movement thing, like The Last Duel or She Said. Like, there is a little bit of that in this movie because, you see this from this girl's perspective, and she doesn't know what's going on. She just thinks what she sees, and they do a pretty good job of incorporating real life situations into this movie in general. And I think it's the talent of Joe Wright as the director of what he did with Pride and Prejudice, and not only that, the casting overall is great. Keira Knightley and James McAvoy are absolutely terrific in this. Saoirse Ronan, her first major feature film where she has a leading role in here, she's really good in the movie here. Even though she got an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress, she's part of the leading cast in this movie, and she plays the part. She works it very well here. There's a lot of good emotional moments in here. There is a lot of good writing in here. The score is terrific. The visuals are absolutely beautiful to look at. Everything about the movie works really well, and it's a film that could have easily been just another bland period piece movie, but no, it takes itself seriously, and it keeps the audience invested in what's going on, and not feeling like that they're watching a pretentious film overall. You get invested in the story so quickly, and you get invested on these characters and what they're going through, and the situations that are being dealt with here, and you see the consequences of everybody's actions in the movie, and I think it works very well to a T. It really is a very underrated film that came out, and it was impressive because a lot of people thought this was a contender for a frontrunner for Best Picture at the time, and nobody really knew. Kind of like with this year's Oscar nominations, nobody really knew who had a better chance of winning. With, there was a chance that this movie was going to do it, maybe No Country for Old Men, or maybe another movie we'll get to, I think, next week, if not that, the following week. But yeah, it's a good movie. It's a really solid film that is very good, and it shows the strength of director Joe Wright as a whole. It shows the strength of these actors as a whole. It shows what you're able to do when you can tell a story like this, and it doesn't feel boring or pretentious or self-absorbed or any way, shape, or form. It works very well for what it's trying to accomplish. It's a really good film, and one I highly recommend checking out. Definitely check out Atonement. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to my favorite movie of the week, and the best movie is one of the best movies of the year per se. Jason Reitman's follow-up to Thank You for Smoking, and that is Juno. Speaking of movies that are able to take real life situations and actually make something really cool and inventive with it, here's a movie that makes it funny in a very bizarre way and makes it work very well. This is a coming of age dramedy in which you have Ellen Page, who is now, of course, Elliot Page, but this was back when she was a woman. She stars as the title character, an independent minded teenager confronting her unplanned pregnancy and the subsequent events that puts pressure on adult life onto her. Michael Cera plays the boy that gets her pregnant, and you have Jennifer Garner and Jason Bateman as this couple who are willing to adopt the baby whenever it gets born, and Allison Janney and J.K. Simmons play the parents of Juno. You also have Olivia Thirlby playing her best friend in the movie, and yeah, this is really a damn good film. Not only does it show what Jason Reitman is capable of doing, like, it's not just, nepotism. Like, this is a guy who can make great movies on his own merits. Like, he's not making the same type of films that his father, Ivan Reitman, did, and it's showing right in front of us. And not only that, you've got a solid cast overall that can make this story work as a whole. Ellen Page is absolutely incredible in this movie. She really is one of the strongest elements of the movie. Everybody plays their parts very well here. Nobody feels like they're playing a stock character overall. You do get invested in everybody's situation in this movie, and it does a very good job of making teen pregnancy a funny aspect too, while also being a more serious element here. And it works because of the writing of Diablo Cody, who won an Oscar for this, a well-deserved Oscar for writing the screenplay for this. And yeah, it's just an incredible, incredible film. Like, it's a great film mostly because it's not just telling you, no, you got yourself in this situation. You're going to have this kid and you're going to parent her. Yeah, she's going to have the kid. And she even thinks about having an abortion. Like, there's a great scene early on where she sees somebody that she knows from school who's, like, protesting outside of the abortion center. And, like, she talks to her for a little bit, and then she walks past her, and the person that she's talking to is just like, babies can feel inside of you, right? They have fingernails, and Ellen Page just goes like, fingernails? Really? Like, stuff like that is actually pretty funny, and I like that she doesn't go along with it, even though nobody could really blame her for doing so in that situation, honestly. And yeah, it's a really inventive and very clever film that knows, like, as long as you have a good script to tell and you can balance comedy and drama out, you can make serious subjects like this work as a comedy if you need to, while you can also be very serious about it as well. It's a really impressive film and a really good movie that is still very relatable to a lot of teenage girls, even to this very day. It's a film that still very much holds up over almost 20 years later, and just shows that Jason Reitman has come a long way, and he really has become one of our great directors, because he really shows that he's stepping out of the elements that his father had beforehand. He's not making those same type of movies again, even though he would make Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I think is a great film. It's still my favorite movie of 2021. Yeah, once in a while that's his only major blockbuster he's ever done. He's gone back to mostly doing independent stuff, and it has worked out very well to his favor. I mean, he just did Saturday Night this past fall, which was another great movie. Yeah, this is a really impressively made film. It's a film that still holds up very well after all these years. It's boasted by a strong performance by Ellen Page and the rest of the cast overall, and it does a great job of balancing the comedic aspects and the dramatic aspects of teenage pregnancy, and doing it in a way where it doesn't feel like you should be offended by it in any way, shape, or form. It feels realistic, it feels fresh, and it feels well put together. This is one of my favorite movies, man. This is a great film overall, a really incredible comedy. What more can I say, man? Juno is pretty amazing, and it still holds up well nearly 20 years later. And so, with all that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and the next time we meet, we take a look at 5 more movies, including a couple of major blockbusters, Will Smith starring in the latest version of the Omega Man entitled I Am Legend. We also have the year's biggest shocker overall, the biggest hit that nobody saw coming, Alvin and the Chipmunks, which, believe it or not, actually holds a significant part of my movie reviewing life. And I'll talk more about that on the next episode. And I'll explain why this particular film of all movies, Alvin and the Chipmunks, was important to me going forward in my future as a film reviewer. But we have another holiday movie, and it's not a good sign when you're opening a holiday movie 2 weeks after the Thanksgiving holiday, and you're releasing it just a few weeks before Christmas. That just basically shows that you have no hope in this film whatsoever, or maybe there's something there. The Perfect Holiday. We also have The Kite Runner, and also Francis Ford Coppola's Youth Without Youth. So we will take a look at all 5 of those movies. That'll be coming up on tomorrow's show. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, notification button, and the bell. And also, hit that bell because you get updates on when the videos come out. And we do post videos here every day. So with all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time. And until then, as always, take care.